Okay, so now to my video on what happened after the backlash that the Olympic opening ceremonies got from some Christians who are both simultaneously narcissistic and horribly, horribly dumb. Now, for those who aren't aware, now I only saw stills of this. I really didn't see the full animation, the live action actual part of this. I think I was in transit or something, but anyway. So we have a bunch of drag queens sitting at a banquet table, stuffing their faces because banquet. And there is a man in purple. At least I think it's a man. It's supposed to be Dionysus. With a wreath over his head, looking jovial, nice full belly. And a bunch of Christians who apparently the only artwork they have ever seen in their entire freaking lives is Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper. And because they know zero history and the only artwork they've ever seen is The Last Supper, and of course they've read the Bible, at least they claim they've read the Bible, they assume that it's making a mockery of Christianity and specifically the Last Supper. Okay, so first off, where the hell was a purple guy with a wreath on his head looking jovial in the Last Supper? Oh yeah, wouldn't that make you think that maybe this had nothing to do with the Last Supper? So there's that. Even if you are completely unaware of Greek mythologies and knew that that was Dionysus, the fact that he was sitting there and there were a bunch of drag queens chowing down, stuffing their faces, are you seriously telling me that that you think the only people in the history of ever who sat at a banquet table like that eating was Jesus and his disciples? Are you kidding me? Are you seriously thinking that that is literally the only time that's ever happened? Either that makes you horribly stupid to history and or completely narcissistic. Because I have bad news for you. Other religions other than yours exist. And actually, ironically, a lot of those religions you stole from with your traditions. So we have this problem of they don't know history, let alone Greek mythology. Plus, for those who are unaware, Dionysus is the god of wine and debauchery. He likes to have a good time. Now, my only problem with that scene was that Dionysus doesn't look anything like I pictured him. But I'll let that slide. Everyone has their own depiction of what the gods should look like. So that's my only problem with it. But, other people might see his depictions perfectly fine. So, we have a bunch of drag queens, which of course sets off Christians anyway because they're grooming something or something. Which, I'm sorry, you're losing your mind because your beliefs somehow are beyond reproach, that they cannot be made fun of, even when it's not being made fun of. You are that weak in your beliefs that I lost my train of thought. That you keep insisting that people should believe the way you should believe. I'm sorry, isn't that grooming? especially when you're forcing children to believe that. That's grooming. What are drag queens doing? Having a good time. If someone looks at drag queens and says, "That looks like fun. I think I want to try that." That's not grooming. That's just people seeing things that they think are cool and wanting to emulate it. Just like literally anything else. So, some Christians, obviously not all, because not all Christians think that not only their religion exists and that there was anything wrong with that scene because they're familiar with Greek mythology. Now, as far as the narcissism, first off, there's the fact that you think that everything about that scene had to do with Christianity. Now, it would be fine if you first thought that this had something to do with the Last Supper, and then, I don't know, ask or research, as opposed, aren't you guys the ones who also are screaming, do your own research, don't listen to experts? So maybe look it up, find out from, say, the artistic director what the vision was, and that it was Dionysus, and that it was a pagan feast. Because, again, your religion isn't the only game in town. And even, I just, how can you not know that paganism didn't exist, is what I'd like to know. I mean, the Olympics, the first modern Olympics were in 1924. It is 2024. So 100 years later, you think they might want to tip their hat to Greece? The birthplace of the modern Olympics. Well, birthplace of the Olympics. But, and France was the birthplace of the modern Olympics. I just don't understand why you are so dead set on assuming that your religion is the one that's being mocked, unless you honestly think that Jesus and his disciples were literally the only ones who ever had a feast like that. In which case, what planet do you live on? But then again, they're also the ones who carry a death trap around their neck, a crucifix, and seem to be unaware that this was a common Roman practice of the death penalty and not something specific to Jesus. So who knows? Maybe they honestly think that anything that involves Jesus is completely new and completely only him, as opposed to, he lived in the world, he did worldly things. I don't know. I don't know if it's narcissism, stupidity, both. And for those who have a problem with my talking about narcissism and stupidity, I'm actually being quite nice, because I'm only concentrating on those who lost their minds over something that had nothing to do with them. Because I could come up with other examples. So, just so you know, I'm being very nice. So, seriously, Christians who lost their minds, because I'm sure that there are some who watch my channel. I won't name names, but I can pretty much guarantee you I know of at least one person who's commented on my videos who has 100% lost her mind at this depiction. I want to know... Sorry, I tried to choke on my own saliva. I want to know, why do you think that that part of the ceremonies had absolutely anything to do with the Last Supper. I would love to know why you think that. Why your first reaction was, this is a mockery of Christianity. Because, again, feasts were a thing, especially pagan feasts. They were a thing. That shit happened. Feasts happened. It wasn't just a one-time thing. It wasn't that Jesus invented feasts and he and his disciples were the only one who knew about it, and nobody spread the word to anyone else. Nope, that's not what happened. So I'm really curious, where did you get this idea that, oh, this must be a mockery of Christianity? Because I just don't see it. Even if you had no concept of Greek mythology and didn't know that that guy was Dionysus, history would tell you that feasts happened. That it wasn't just a one-time thing by your Savior and his disciples. So I'm curious, why do you assume that that's what it was about? Because to me, it makes zero sense. Why do you think that, yeah, I'm sorry, I have an itchy nose. Why do you think, seriously, why do you think that this had anything to do with Christianity? Because I'm just not seeing it. It's a bunch of drag queens having a good time with Dionysus, because, you know, how can you not have a good time with Dionysus? I mean, that's his whole thing, is having a good time. Even if you didn't know that was Dionysus or who Dionysus is, where did you get this idea that it was an attack on the Last Supper? I just don't understand why your brains immediately went there. Unless you are so stuck on your religion that you think anything that remotely resembles something that is in your belief system, like the Last Supper, has to be a depiction of it, a mockery of it, whatever. Because I just cannot see how you can assume that Jesus and his disciples were the only ones who had a feast. Even if you did not know anything about Greek or Roman mythology, why do you think that Jesus was the only one who had a feast like this? Because I just can't see that as being even remotely realistic. I just do not understand this at all. So please, if somebody in the comments could enlighten me as to why you have a problem with that depiction. Because most people saw nothing wrong. And for those who claim that there were French people who had a problem with it, did they really, or did they see that others had a problem with it and they just jumped on it? Because the French people who had a problem with it, my understanding, were politicians. And we all know that politicians, well, some politicians, will jump on absolutely anything and take the side of the aggrieved, whether they believe that it's justified or not, simply because they want to be on a certain side. I honestly thought this video was going to be longer, but, yeah. So if you guys could enlighten me as to why you thought such a stupid thing. And I am sorry, it's stupid. Because, again, feasts happened. Even if you don't know it's a pagan feast, they happened. Feasts happened. Hell, all you have to learn about is the Roman emperors. They had feasts all the time, and orgies, but they had feasts. I fail to see how this is any different. So, unless you are completely 100% ignorant of any history, I'm not just talking about pagan history, I'm not talking about, technically, Greeks and Romans, I mean, at some point they became Christian. I think they were still having feasts, though. So even if you didn't have any concept of this being a pagan depiction, feasts happened. Even if you didn't know that was Dionysus, how could you miss that? I just don't get it. So, I'm just rambling, saying the same thing over and over and over again because I'm just still in disbelief as to how the hell people are having a problem with this. So, with that, I will see you in the next video.